Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we have an incredible guest. We're lucky to have him. Former Mayor of Tacoma Park, Bruce Williams. Bruce, thank you for joining Jerry and I to talk about tax duplication.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
So Bruce, there are people that are watching this that are colleagues representing the 21 cities and towns in Montgomery County that do not have a clue what tax duplication is. And there are residents that have heard it a number of times in passing. Can you just give us some background on what is this thing called tax duplication?
Sure. Depending on where you are in the state, a county is either required to confer with municipalities or not required to confer with municipalities. And the conferring takes place over the fact that residents in municipalities can be taxed twice for the same provision of a service. The assumption is that the county provides all services because counties are the 800-pound gorilla in the state of Maryland. And so where a municipality provides that service and the county doesn't provide that service, the county still reaps all of the tax revenues for providing that service. So there needs to be some way of transferring that money from the entity that collects it but doesn't provide the service to the entity that provides the service but doesn't collect the revenue to pay for it. So there's basically two different ways of doing that in the state. Two different models that are employed by different counties. One is to have a tax differential where the tax rate for people in the municipality is reduced for the services that the municipality, the tax rate for their county tax rate is reduced and their municipal tax rate is increased to pay for it. So it's a fairly clean way of doing it. You provide the service, you collect the revenue. In other counties like Montgomery, it's a tax duplication payment where the county collects all the money and then there's a formula where there's money returned to the municipalities.
In this formula, isn't it codified on the books? Don't we know what this formula is?
There are existing formulas. Things can be codified on the books and you have the formulas in place, but it relies on appropriation of the monies every year. And that's the sticking point with the tax duplication payments in Montgomery County as they're currently set up.
How long has this been an issue? Is this something that just cropped up recently, or has this been a long simmering issue between municipalities in the county and the county government?
I was first elected in 1993 and served 22 years. And the whole time I was an elected official, tax duplication was an issue. It was a sticking point. There were meetings between the county and the municipalities over trying to fix the formulas because there were outdated formulas that didn't reflect at all the costs of the county to provide the service, because the way it's set up, it's a reimbursement, not for what the municipalities spend, but for what the counties would have spent if they had provided the service. And so every couple of years, as the county changes their service provision and how they do various things that they do, the formulas should be changed to address that.
Okay, how does tax duplication, who does the tax duplication impact, and what are some of it, how does that manifest itself?
Well, the biggest thing where there's tax duplication is for road maintenance. All the municipalities in Montgomery County own their own roads and provide the services to maintain those roads. It's not just the road itself, the curb and gutter, the sidewalks, the street lamps, all of those go into the road maintenance formula. And so that provides the vast majority of the monies that are involved in tax duplication and affects every municipality. I think the current amount of tax duplication and the formulas that feed it were done probably 15 years ago at least. And the payments, which are supposed to be for the county's audited figures from 2 years prior, resulted in tax duplication payments of about $8 million in about 2008, and then the economy went south, and the county basically said in 2009, we don't have the money, we're not paying you. And we said, but these are supposed to be reimbursements for what you spent 2 years ago. You do have the money. But the figures have been stuck at about $8 million ever since 2008.
Is there an inflation kicker in this, in the formula, or is it just a straight formula?
It's a straight formula based on what the county's costs would be. So the county's costs for road maintenance have gone up, as have the municipalities. The total figure for all tax duplication payments, according to the agreed upon formulas, should result in tax duplication payments from the county to the municipalities of $14 million a year, and they're currently giving us $8 million. So they're shortchanging the municipalities on the audited figures, $6 million a year. And the bulk of that is roads. And the other large piece of it is the Tacoma Park police rebate, because Tacoma Park has a separate police department, unlike some of the mixed service models in Rockville and Gaithersburg.
So basically, who makes up the money that the county doesn't give the municipalities?
The municipal taxpayers. And municipal taxpayers look at tax rates and go, why are our taxes so high? Because it's on top of the county tax rate, and there's no break on the county tax rate. And so the municipality and the municipal taxpayers get stuck every year.
Now, I know during your term representing the residents of Tacoma Park, you've tried on many occasions to try to solve this, either on the state level or locally in Montgomery County. What do you think was the biggest block that stopped you, that we could learn from, trying to come up with some type of resolution that the county would stick with and the chapter members be able to agree to? Because they're going to be winners and losers, whatever we decide, right? The county is going to say, well, you're taking away money that's your money, but we are taking this money for ourselves.
We've got it and we want to keep it.
Exactly. But at the same time, if we do come up with an agreement with our members, some members may have to give up some of their revenues.
I know that in the past there have been opportunities for kind of dividing the municipalities, where somebody would gain and somebody would lose. And I know there have been instances where we in Tacoma Park would have gained by certain actions if we had agreed to them with the county. And we said, no, we're going to stand with our fellow municipal officials. We're all in this together. It has to be fair. There are always efforts to try and have an all-encompassing solution, and I think that's the way to go. It's harder when you get picked off one by one. And I would say that in thinking about how to implement that or any strategy, be careful what the county agrees to, kind of the old trust but verify, because the county will promise one thing and do something else. When the current county executive was first running in 2006, we in Tacoma Park brought the candidates here during the primary and said, tax duplication is an important issue, and what can you promise us to make this right and to make this fair? And the current county executive said, I can promise you that I will make every effort to fix the formulas to fairly reflect the costs that the county has. But I can't necessarily promise you that we'll be able to fully fund them right away because of all these other issues that are going on with the county and all these other things we have to do. We understood that. We didn't necessarily like it, but we understood it. We accepted it. And the problem was, over the ensuing 12 years, efforts to fix the formulas resulted in long meetings and a lot of effort to fairly reflect what the county services are and what their costs are. And we would get to a point where everything was pretty much wrapped up and ready to adjust the formula. And then the county would just take all those papers and stick them in a drawer and pretend they didn't exist. And so you have to have an approach toward this that you can all accept, that you feel, that you, the municipalities, feel is fair, that the county agrees is fair, and then in some ways that's the easy part, but you got to get implementation. And the argument that the county will use is that it's a tax duplication formula, not a service duplication formula. And they'll say that, you know, only a portion of their revenue to pay for their services comes from taxes. I think in most years the bulk of the county's revenues come from income tax payments, not from property tax or other taxes. And so they try and say, well, you know, we're assigning the percentage so that, you know, if only 50% of our revenues come from taxes, then only 50% of our costs are paid by that, and therefore you only get 50% of our costs. Problem is that that formula changes every year, and the percentage that they get from income tax revenue changes. And when the economy goes south, their income tax revenues drop like a stone. And there's no willingness to say, but let's reflect that in those years the percentage goes much higher. So the county always wants to have it their way, have their cake and eat it too.
So are you saying that there's just one solution to this thing, that some municipalities might want one option? I think one option on the table was grants, another option was reduction in the property tax rate in that particular municipality to offset. So what you're saying is basically there's just one solution. Basically, will have to apply to all the municipalities within the county.
I think that's probably the only way to do it from the municipality's point of view, and it's certainly the only way to do it from the county's point of view. They don't want to be doing different formulas or different ways of following through on that for each municipality. I can see where that would be a nightmare for the county.
And so how do we make sure, if we get to this point, how do we make sure that we have the legislation that has the teeth in it? That if the county does not honor the agreement, that there's some type of trigger that we do get the money that is owed us, because we are basing our budgets on this money, or part of our budgets on this money.
That's a tough one, because it would probably be something that would need to come from the state, and the state would say, gee, you in Montgomery County ought to feel lucky that you at least have to meet and confer with the county over this. You know, there's all different situations for all different counties, and so, gee, we don't want to wade into this. You the municipalities and counties, figure this out, and if you come up with a solution, bring it to us and we'll codify it in state law. So I don't think that's going to get very far. And getting the county to basically say, we promise we will pay you exactly what we owe you according to the adopted formulas, good luck. It's not a particularly optimistic outlook. Based on over 20 years of dealing with this issue and being very hopeful any number of times that the solution was in sight, we were there, we were going to get a fair formula and a fair implementation of that formula, and we would have money as we considered our budgets that we knew that we could include, and there's just too many years of knowing that that isn't the case.
So has the roadblock been in the county government or in the county council with respect to this? Because I know the county council eventually has to sign off on it, and they might just be a little hesitant to do so.
I would say we've had better luck with the county council than we have with the executive branch. Any number of times the executive has put in either a reduced amount or the same amount as the year before, which gets us to the 8.2 million that it currently is, that it basically was in 2008. And the municipalities have been successful at times in making the argument to the county council that there needed to be adjustments to that figure. And that's part of that whole budget reconciliation process with the county council, and has required intense lobbying by municipalities to try and make that happen, with limited and varied success.
Bruce, we want to thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
For joining us. It's always a pleasure to see you. And thank all of you watching today. Thank you for being a guest with us on tax duplication. We know this is a very complicated subject. We plan on having another interview in the weeks to come to talk about a potential solution to this problem that has been with the municipalities of Montgomery County for 20 plus years.